An ancient proverb tells us where there's life, there's hope. And we must have life to have peace. The theme of our third section is securing life. How does peace education help make people on this planet safer and more secure? Donato Kiniger Pastigli, Vice President of the World Academy of Art and Science, tackles this question with four dynamic peace educators. Felipe Dominguez, Institute for Economics and Peace, Country Director for Portugal, and biographer for United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Dr. Ramada Almami Mbaye, Chief of Human and Social Sciences, ISESCO. Charlotte Courtois, Founder and Director, the Constellation Association. Sabrina Gaffrey Valicelli, educator, facilitator of the Peace Education Program from the Prem Wawat Foundation. Peace isn't just safer than war. Research shows that it's much more profitable. Felipe Dominguez uncovers the data linking peace, prosperity, and sustainability in a lively exchange with three climate activists: Jihan El Giati, ISESCO Youth Peace Ambassador and student; Kehekeshan Basu, founder and president of Green Hope Foundation, and a member of the Global Advisory Council of GPEN; and Jacob Johns, artist, activist, executive director of the Wisdom Keepers Delegation.
Let's introduce this very important subject that is also the subject of the main campaign, Human Security for All.
Human Security for All. Salam alaikum. Thank you for this platform, and you can congratulate yourselves, first of all, Darlene and David, for organizing this Global Summit for Peace Education. For ISESCO, action revolves around human security and human capital. When we talk about human capital, it's a holistic approach. It's really an inclusive, holistic approach that requires many different development indicators. And for us, the question of development centers around peace. And it's the reason why we have the capacity to talk about the development of capital. Peace has a major role in all development, and it's what we have brought to the unified approach that we call the Special Program for the Culture of Peace. It's a community, and I believe that this morning there was an interview that said that we have a lot of goals, we don't operate as a team. At the level of ISESCO, we have this publication, An Organized Approach to Peace. We have two editions. The philosophy of yesterday's program, human security, health, and well-being. Peace is at the heart, at the center of all development. We need to intervene when development provokes violence. To build the culture of peace, we are developing a special program for the future of diplomacy. We are developing ongoing, formal education to promote the culture of peace. We also have, of course, everything related to climate change that comes down to peace. The whole issue of technology and artificial intelligence comes down to peace. That's why this morning our CEO talked about this program, this master's degree in peace and security that we are trying to set up at the center of education for the culture of peace. We need to move away from a model of national security to a model of society that encourages cooperation, because we have a social program that integrates this new approach to peace. We want sustainable development. We want social peace, community peace, peace at all levels, peace without militarization. This is what also leads us, of course, to make it a training model. And that's why we've started to integrate it into the training curriculum. For example, at the International University of Europa. The Peace and Security Hospital has already integrated the model of attachment to peace and security as an integral part of their training model, which is crucial. So, the added value of this Peace and Security Hospital program, which provides a comprehensive approach to security education, is this ability that we insist on welcoming youth and women and placing them at the center. And that, I think, brings us to the opportunity to welcome the peace ambassadors for 2 days. And I have admitted the benefits there, of course, of our 2 colleagues who represent UNESCO and ISESCO. So I was saying that this is actually a program of young people who are ambassadors of peace, who will now identify the aims we provide, who will accompany us so that we really promote peace. However, we talked a lot about the article, How to Sow Peace. And then I was saying precisely that these young people who are responsible for building not only the future, but the present. We mobilize them, we train them, and we test them. We have 180 young ambassadors for peace. That is to say, within this framework of young ambassadors who are responsible for developing different intercultural, religious, not big, they're young people, as we tell you, through their, how can I put it, their creativity, their energy, so that we can have a little bit of world or peaceful, resilient societies, especially resilient, or societies that have the capacity for global education about their differences. So it's important to use these young people in the way of peace, whom we train, whom we accompany, so that we can have the world we want and really pay for it. And above all, these young people who are responsible for transforming, above all, transforming and implementing, because we always need education for the culture of peace, and education is important. We must also bring young people together so that they can not only assimilate these values, but also pass them on, so that the world can evolve without having to deal with everything that is happening. So I think that this peace and security program, again, is an ISESCO initiative and a shared model, but also an innovative and inclusive model. But it is a culture, intercultural, and holistic approach to this new AMP approach, where all countries, young people, women, and youth leaders can interact in a dialogue for education. And allow me also, dear moderators, to emphasize that what happened today is quite special. We're used to facilitating meetings or discussions, many debates, but what was special about today's meeting was its unique ability to connect the intellectual and the emotional. This morning, it was all about emotions. And for us, when we talk about dedication to the culture of peace, it is, above all, about emotion. We have to have all the knowledge there is, capitalize on knowledge. But if knowledge is not transmitted with the necessary love and emotion, I think we will achieve nothing. For me, today was a fine example of the right balance.
So let's speak in English, please. Just let me, before speaking on behalf of IB, tell you a bit side story, because you mentioned the UN and you mentioned this huge problem that the UN has on comms, on Yeah, no, absolutely. On another thing that I've done in my life, I am the biographer of the UN Secretary General, the current, Antonio Guterres. Yes. So, thank you. But if you Google, if you allow me the advertisement, if you go to Amazon, if you look for his biography, you're gonna find it there in English and in Portuguese, of course, not in Spanish. But the thing is, this is a conversation that we had with him, with his spokesperson, with Stéphane Dujarric, which is French. Well, he's French, and he's been there since the times of at least Kofi Annan. It is absolutely, if I had to pinpoint one of the huge flaws of the UN, it's communications, of course. The UN was not created to solve humanity's problems, because it's out of their reach, it's out of their mandate, it's out of their physical and political capability. The comms. You can fix comms. You cannot fix human sins. You cannot fix political sins. You can prevent, you can do countless things. Comms, you can fix comms. So, absolutely. So, from my own experience dealing with Mr. Guterres, with Stefan, with people at a very high level, even that there is now an Undersecretary General for Global Communications, Melissa Fleming. So you can fix comms. So definitely, I'm with you on that side. Now, getting back to the issue, at the Institute for Economics and Peace, we have developed a concept, a framework that is now internationally renowned, which is called positive peace. And it has been quoted more than once this morning, and especially three of the pillars that we have conceptualized and used. So, positive peace, it's based on the premise that it's easier to study violence and peace, and it's easier to look at violence when people try to discuss peace. Usually people discuss violence in academia when the tradition of studying peace, then it gets converted to studying violence. So we decided to look actually at peace and to how institutions, structures, and attitudes shape peaceful behavior in peaceful societies. So what are these 8 pillars, these 8 drivers? I'm still recovering from a light pneumonia, so if my memory was also affected, I'm sorry, let me see if I can get the 8 straight. A sound business environment, an equitable distribution of resources, and you will see how this fits very well with the human security concept. So, sound business environment, equitable distribution of resources, free flow of information, and this was quoted by UNESCO in the morning, acceptance of the rights of others, good relations with your neighbors, a well-functioning government, low levels of corruption, and high levels of human capital. I think I got the 8 right. 1, 2, 3, yeah. Those are the 8. So
You took a risk, but you took a high risk.
I took a high risk. I know. Especially getting older, the memory is starting to fade. But these are the 8. These are the 8 pillars that we have conceptualized under this positive peace framework. And of course, this is an excellent fit to the human security standard. Even NATO now has an Under-Secretary General or a special representative for human security, thinking about a military alliance that covers this issue now. She's an Italian, by the way. I don't know if you've met her, but it's an Italian lady responsible for human security in NATO. And so this is the approach that we have been taking. Just 2 final points. The last pillar that I mentioned on purpose as the last one. High levels of human capital. It looks at education, of course, but it looks way beyond education. If we remind ourselves of what happened in Tunisia at the early days of the so-called Arab Spring, and of the fragility of the state in Tunisia, it had the highest standard of education in all of the Maghreb region. And still, the state crumbled so easily, let's say, but it crumbled really fast, even though education was actually remarkable in terms of education in the state. So this is a very good example of how we should look at peace in a systemic and holistic way, and hence our 8-pillar approach to it. And then I can speak, of course, about the actions that we are undertaking throughout the world in today, more than 150 countries, about actionable plans and how they are transformative in this systemic and holistic. But I think I've spoken too much for now, so thank you and sorry for this.
Absolutely. No, I don't know if you can hear me. Maybe this microphone.
I am indeed the founder and director of an NGO called Constellatio, whose mission is to develop awareness of and the value of cultural diversity and most of all intercultural dialogue. So I love that we have been talking so much about the positive aspect. So it's not about what we do is not about fighting against. It's about promoting. It's about developing curiosity. It's about showing. So we work mainly with children and teenagers, showing them how marvelous it is. Give O and not say, you know, this is bad or we need to fight this. It's about saying, wow, have you seen the beauty and how interesting our diversity is? So we have been working for almost 14 years now, all around the world. Well, not all, but we would love that. We've been working in 15 different countries with children, teenagers, focusing on equal access to culture. And I mean actual equal access. So we're not leading projects for children or for handicapped children. We are leading projects for all of them without making a difference because we consider that culture is everywhere in all scales of society and in all countries, and there is no difference. And there shouldn't be a difference. We are accredited by the UNESCO for the 2003 convention. So unfortunately, I won't be here tomorrow. I'll be flying to Paraguay, to Asuncion. I hope I first thought when you invited me on stage, I was like, oh, wow, human security. I hope I'm not stretching it too much. But thinking about it, I realized that really I'm not. So UNESCO showed some figures, I think it was in 2022, about the fact that 89% of conflict around the world is happening in countries where intercultural dialogue is low. So it took me a while to start saying, and it took us a while as an NGO to start saying that we were working for peace education because it felt like, you know, being a bit presumptuous. But really, that's what we're doing. So what we want to show the children and teenagers is by asking each other questions, by being sincerely, authentically interested in others, you discover yourself differently. And by knowing yourself better, you feel less threatened by difference. And so this is the key of everything that we try to bring. And I believe that there is no security in isolation. We need that bond with people like us in our communities, but also with other communities. We need to create this dialogue. We need to get people talking. And so what we're trying to do and what we've been trying to do for the past 14 years is get children to ask questions. Curiosity did not kill the cat. And this is, I think, the main idea behind what we do.
Thank you very much, Donato. Yes, this was unexpected, and I will be very short as I know that we have little time now. My name is Sabrina Galfrey Vallicelli. In my daily life, I am a French teacher. I'm living in Copenhagen now, Denmark, since 14 years. And I am also an educator and facilitator for the Peace Education Program that is offered by the Prem Rawat Foundation. So I have been dealing with PhD students and master students at Polytechnical University, DTU in Denmark. And I could really see that, you know, in a world where everything has changed so much the last 50 years, and we are so many, and there is so much going on, our young are pretty stressed, and in their busy schedule, they're not doing so fine. Emotionally, they can feel alone, they're stressed. Never like today, we have been talking of so many things going on. And it's good that we can talk about it. And so I could see that they would come and attend this program that is non-political and non-religious, and that is free of charge as well. When they just take the time in between a lunch break, for instance, or on Zoom, or after the classes, because for them, that was the time for themselves, to discover themselves. So this program promotes resilience and personal peace. And we will have the opportunity tomorrow to have a very nice presentation about this program. So I invite you all to come and listen to it. Thank you.
We still have about 15 minutes. I would like to ask if anybody from the audience who wants to intervene, has question for us, for any of us, please. Yes, can you stand up and tell us who you are? No, we will give you a microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. So my name is Amel. I'm an ISA NGO representative for the Middle East, and I just want to have like more details and information around about the parallel that you have done between the level of education of the Tunisian and the Tunisian Spring and what happened, because I didn't get it myself as a half Tunisian. So thank you very much.
This question is for whom, sorry?
For Mr. Pierre, your name, sorry? Felipe. Okay, thank you very much, Felipe.
Felipe, would you? Let's see if there is any other question from the floor, from participants, from other. I see this gentleman. Yes. You are not talking. Anyone has questions? You can start. You can start. We are hunting for speakers. Anybody who wants to take the floor. The lady, please. Yes. Lady with glasses. Yes.
Hello. Thank you all. I have a question, since you come from structured institutional environments, organizational structures. I feel that at the grassroots level, the message for peace agency isn't getting through, because people feel that they have to somehow acquire new learning, new skills, and not understanding that where they are, where they live, what they do professionally can already be a platform for peacemaking. And I would love to hear your opinion on that, because I feel it's an important message. It puts a very human face, an individual sense of agency in terms of participating in the peace building process.
I'm told that we don't have more time for questions. We have to wrap up by 5:30, so we have very few minutes to respond to this last question for the four of you, and then the particular question about the Arab Spring, if I'm not correct, if I'm not wrong. Yes, please.
Of course,
you start.
Of course, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear enough. My only point was that when looking at state resilience, as important as education is, it's not the alpha and the omega of resilience. You need to look at many other issues like the ones I have discussed: sound business environment, low levels of corruption, well-functioning government, the free flow of information, equitable distribution of resources. So that was my only point. And Tunisia was just an example of a country that had a very, very high standard of education level, but still the state crumbled. That was just the only point, that education, of course, it's fundamental, but looking at education alone does not provide
state resilience holistically and systemically. That was my only point. Regarding the other question, I think that my panel colleagues are are well suited, more suited than me to answer.
So let's go on. First, Ramata, please.
About grassroots component, I just want to update that from ASESCO side, we have been involving all communities actors coming from involving Moses. We have a special program we call Moses of Peace. It's really to integrate, to involve Moses in the process of peace building. We also involve religious leaders, most importantly, because they are mostly the ones who interact in their daily interaction with people. Et c'est tellement très important de la question d'intégrer les religieux avec tous les espaces de sociabilité et qui leur permet d'interagir avec la communauté, de les avoir comme peace builders est un élément important que les ESCO également promeut. Mais un élément très important sur lequel je voudrais venir, quand on parle de grassroots et de human security, le premier élément, in English, okay, we'll do it both. The first important element for us is about interaction. First interaction, momentum are the most important in terms of human security. And about that, it's important also to highlight the importance of Islam as religion of peace. When we say Assalamu alaikum, it's really peace be upon you. It's really be reassured on our interaction in a very balanced manner. And this is something key also it's important to highlight concerning Islam as religion of peace. Je parlerai both English and French because it's also about human security when we feel most comfortable in terms of sharing our experience. Cet élément de salutation, comme je l'ai dit, c'est le premier élément de stabilité, de bien-être, de partage, de solidarité dans un esprit vraiment pacifique. Quand on dit assalamu alaikum en islam, c'est vraiment que la paix soit. Et ça, c'est un élément très important. Beaucoup pensent aussi que l'islam est une religion, je veux dire, en tout cas, il y a une autre interprétation qui est complètement différente de l'origine, de l'essence même de l'islam qui appelle à la paix, à la solidarité, au partage. Vous me permettrez également, cher, de parler d'un élément important que beaucoup d'autres intervenants ont évoqué ce matin. It's about the economic aspect. When we talk about education for the culture of peace, it's also about investment. Le niveau d'investissement que nous pouvons mettre pour que cette éducation à la culture de la paix soit une réalité. Au niveau de l'ISESCO, je parlais tout à l'heure du programme Peace Building avec les jeunes ambassadeurs de la paix, mais également les organisations doivent pouvoir investir financièrement pour que non seulement les jeunes puissent se regrouper, échanger, mais également pouvoir développer des programmes autour de leur entrepreneuriat et de l'autonomisation. It's about also youth entrepreneurship. It's about also women entrepreneurship. Et cet élément, je voudrais dire que l'ISESCO, non seulement le directeur général a déclaré 2023-2024 année de la jeunesse, mais c'est également cette capacité que l'organisation a quand même, non seulement à ce jour, d'avoir 40% des ressources humaines qui sont jeunes, mais également de pouvoir investir autour des dialogues intergénérationnels de haut niveau ou des hommes politiques, du secteur privé, civil society organization, from academic sector, pour se regrouper avec les jeunes, pour échanger. Et le tout dernier qu'on a mis, ça s'est passé en Azerbaïdjan, à Bakou, où nous avons eu plus de 200 jeunes venus de plus de 50 de pays, réunis autour d'un dialogue intergénérationnel où il y avait la secrétaire générale de la FIFA, juste par exemple le monde sportif, où nous avions des ministres, où nous avions des ex-présidents, où nous avions également des jeunes leaders de partout dans le monde qui ont réfléchi autour d'un plan d'action spécial avec Youth Declaration, where we have cultural heritage. Parce que aussi cet élément est très important. Quand on parle de diversité culturelle, la valorisation de la culture pour repenser le monde est un élément très important. Donc, cher, je sais que je ne vais pas prendre la parole, mais je laisserai ces documents pour que vous puissiez lire et voir un peu comment, au niveau de l'ISESCO, we try to translate policy into concrete action at the community level, but also at grassroots level. Thank you.
Merci. Do we have a word from, yes, please, Charlotte.
Very
Very,
quickly.
very
Of
quick.
course, although I could go on for hours on this
No, I
subject.
see
Thank
that,
you for
yes.
your question. It was very interesting. I think what slows us down is that peace is very abstract. And the way we work on it is culture. And culture is very abstract. So the way we do it with children, but also, I mean, outside of my NGO, I also give conferences in companies on intercultural management. And it's the same. It's so help people understand that it's just as easy as asking each other questions. It's about talking. It's about listening. It's about knowing how to ask questions to understand, not to reply. And this can be done in any aspect of our lives. And this is in our hands as citizens. And it's not only about public policies, it's not only about countries, it's about everyday life. And so what we do with children is teach them how to ask questions, how to listen, how to explain, oh, you say this, this is how I do it, this is how I understand it. And I do the same thing in the workplace, because we spend what? 1/3 of our adult life at work. If we manage to have an impact also in the workplace, we manage to have an impact on society as a whole. But to do that, people need to understand what it means concretely, what it means in everyday life. It's not about peace between countries. It's about when your colleague does something that you don't like, that you don't understand, asking them why and explaining what you were expecting, how you understood it, asking what they meant. This is peace. It's not just about the countries, and then the rest just follows. So giving people a sense of agency is helping them understand concretely what it means, not just the concept. I hope I was clear.
Perfect. It is perfectly clear. A word.
Yes,
from
I will try to
Sabrina.
be super short as well. Well, facilitating the peace education program and going through 10 themes. And again, tomorrow you will know much more and in details what it is about. Gives the opportunity to the participant to be empowered and to have a process of self-discovery. So it's very concrete, is through 10 themes, and it's about self-discovery. So what I can do, I can facilitate the program. I can be in peace myself because that's my responsibility, so that maybe I can inspire or touch other arts. And then it's a process of self-discovering and find the inner resources to find peace within oneself and then with others. Thank you.
Thank you all. I think I have only a few words to conclude this wonderful event, an hour and a half now, probably. Thank you for the panelists. Thank you, the panelists. I want to conclude just reiterating what is the essence of human security vis-a-vis peace. I mean, there is ample evidence that human security is the essential condition for peace, the positive peace that we are talking about. Investments in human security are the best way to prevent and to reduce incidents of violence. And this is why we need to work together. This is why we need to work in education. But we also is the reason why we have to involve other untraditional, non-traditional actors, the business community in particular. But we have to work for healthcare. We have to work for involving parliamentarians. I think is also a very important partner. We do cultivate this relation with the Interparliamentary Union because we are trying to elevate their consciousness in terms of what is human security and how that can affect their practice, the legislative, the representative power, even the budgetary elements of their work, how that can be construed around the concept of human security. Green peace is also very important. I mean, the environment. I projected some images, maybe you didn't see, but they relate also to our programming in terms of the environment. Even fashion shows, the Green Fashion Week, are important elements of our educational component or components. So there is scope for many initiatives, and we have to recognize their legitimacy, the important role of working together, where when we reduce distrust and we promote trust among people, we also work towards progressive peace. This progressive peace that we call the peace offensive. And we hope that you will contribute to all together through the educational programs, through the activities that we have in place to affirm a new kind of peace for everybody. Thank you. Thank you for the session and for the day with you.
Question of the day. Most of us want to earn a comfortable living. That's always better, especially to care for ourselves and those we care about. So we want to do this in a way that takes care of the planets that we share. And to do that, we'll hear today from our next roundtable how peace education contributes to prosperity and sustainability. And to do that, please welcome Felipe Dominguez, who will be the chair of this next session. We can. And please also welcome our speakers, Kakashin Basu, Jihan El Giati, Jacob Jones, Dianela, yes, that's right, Diaz and Hashem Page.
And thank you for letting me know that the Zoom was on my back, because otherwise I would have not have noticed. So thank you both. Thank you again. Since yesterday. Hi again on Zoom. Can you see us and hear as well?
Yes, I can.
Great, wonderful. Well, ESGs, these standards that for a couple of years now, perhaps a bit more, everyone has been listening to this idea that companies and organizations and institutions, as well as individuals, should respect and comply and engage simultaneously environmental standards, social standards, and governance standards. If you all recall yesterday's discussions, when we talked about human security, that was also a systemic approach, a holistic approach. It's not only, as we've discussed, about traditional, old, fashion style, physical security. It goes way, it's way broader than that. As well as the positive peace concept that we have and framework that we have developed in the Institute for Economics and Peace. I'm not sure if yesterday I made this point so clear, but so the Institute for Economics and Peace, it's an Australian-based think tank with offices all throughout the world, and we are, at least we like to think we are specialized, and our partners recognize us as such, as being specialized in studying the intersection of peace and economics. And this usually sounds as a quite obvious thing, but when you start to look at the metrics, when you first define the metrics, then you really delve into the statistic indicators. When you develop the econometric models, then is when you actually see how these two components grow into each other. And we have heard yesterday something that I actually do not agree with, and this morning I heard Jacob saying something that I do agree with. Peace is not abstract. At least that's our starting point. Peace is quite the opposite. It's tangible and it's measurable. And that was a challenge that we had from the outset, and we have proven that it's measurable. So both in the positive peace framework and in the Global Peace Index and in the other major indexes that we publish, we can measure peace on a certain time and space, and we can track how it evolves on time. So yes, it is tangible. It is not something that we just feel. And it's amazing to feel what we have been feeling during these past 2 days, especially now. But yes, it's tangible and it's real and it can be measured. We have even developed what we call the peace dividend. Yesterday there was a French professor here talking about the value of economics for peace development, and this peace dividend that we concluded tells us that for every $1 spent in peace building, this $1 alone yields $16 in reduced violence cost. So it's 1 to 16. So these numbers are there. These are public, and you can even check the references and how did we get to these conclusions. Just to remind you, this paints a bit of a grim picture, but again, this has been discussed more or less, especially in the coffee breaks. Yes, last year, the total cost of violence in the world was $19 trillion. That's bigger than the GDP of China. So should this be a country, let's say, Violencistan, it would be the second economy in the world. Okay. It's that huge. Compared to what we spend in peace, we only spend 0.6%, not of global GDP, but of the military expenditure. So it's that impressive. And what we have been discussing, again, how could the world look like if we could take just 10% of our investments in violence and put them into a peace? We are talking about cutting, of course, unfortunately, violence will never disappear, but if we could cut just 10%, this would mean almost $1.9 trillion in savings that could be reinvested in other productive areas. So cutting just 10% of what we spend in violence, just cutting, it would mean almost $9 trillion that could be reinvested in other sectors. All this, again, not to paint a grim picture, but just to put some numbers, because I felt that after these 2 days of discussion, this was needed for us to really be sort of punched in the face with the hard reality of all the opportunities we're missing out and the universal benefit that could come from this. Jihan, can I ask you to kick off this conversation?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Mr. Felipe, for this insightful introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Jihan Elriati, and I am an ICESCO Youth Peace Ambassador and also a PhD student. Well, if I can share, I would say that I do believe that education is the key for a sustainable peace. Being myself enrolled in the LTIPS program, which is the Leadership Training in Peace and Security program launched by ICESCO, has allowed me to acquire different skills, tools, different visions, opportunities, such as being here with you today. And all that has contributed to shape our vision and also to deeply understand the meaning of the culture of peace in its 3 pillars, the ESG, environment, social, and governance. For instance, for environment, if we do promote young individuals to do an eco-friendly act and for them to raise the consciousness of its importance, that would be great for our green opportunities, for our world. And in the social aspect, I would say it is really crucial to know the difference between conflict prevention rather than conflict resolution. And last but not least, which is governance, it is important to take on account the voice of youth and in ethical decisions. Well, overall, I would say that as a Youth Peace Ambassador, I came here bringing with me the voice of young people, the vision of a rising generation and its energy, and also a vision of a world where peace and education go hand in hand. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jihan. Now, going to the Zoom. Kekashan, please, your thoughts.
Thank you, Felipe, and hello, everyone. My name is Kehkasha. I am a United Nations human rights champion and founder president of Green Hope Foundation. I am trying to share my screen to share a bit about what I wanted to share in terms of the solutions and the best practices of the lessons learned. So just trying to see if that can be done. Yes, it can be now. Great. So as I mentioned, I'm founder president of Green Hope Foundation that works in 28 countries with over 500,000 people, utilizing education for sustainable development as a transformative tool to enable stakeholders across the globe to think and act for a sustainable future. Peace education, of course, being a very important part of that education. And the way we see it, we understand that given that sustainability has its three pillars of economy, society, and the environment, that definitely links well with ESG principles as well. And that when we actually work to implement the peace education and turn that into ground level actions, we need to be cognizant of these three pillars that do exist and address their intersections instead of going forward and addressing them in silos. And in that aspect, we absolutely do believe that peace is very, very tangible and definitely not abstract, because when we see the long-term prosperity and the solutions that are implemented that bring about long-term prosperity, you can absolutely say that peace is very, very tangible. So, for instance, we have our solar-powered mobile libraries that were instituted during the pandemic in climate vulnerable zones. This is in Bangladesh and India, where they take books to the doorstep of thousands of out-of-school children, specifically girls, making sure we don't have a lost generation. That is our way of creating peace, by ensuring they have access to education and ensuring their socioeconomic development as well. We see in a lot of communities and countries around the world suffering from water insecurity. The access to the basic human right of water is a way of creating peace. And so when we implement that peace on the ground, it manifests itself in the form of solar water farms in Cambodia and in Kiribati to purify groundwater and rainwater and make sure indigenous communities there have access to clean drinking water. That promotes their socioeconomic development and is good for the environment. We build toilets in climate disaster zones specifically for women and girls because we know that gender equality is a prerequisite for peace. And by ensuring that we have the safe space for women and girls, it's our way of creating peace. Same with the solar, electric, and eco cookers that we train women in vulnerable communities in using so that they don't inhale smoke, cause respiratory issues, and of course, it helps to ensure the reduction of greenhouse gases. Tiger widows in the Sundarbans, the world's largest mangrove forest on the India-Bangladesh border. On the India side, we work to empower them using fish farming so that they're not they're not ostracized by society anymore, and they're actually able to use that money to get a stable source of income. That is creating peace. And when we try to see how that peace manifests itself with children across the world, we have our Grow Your Own Food campaign that encourages children from Kiribati to Peru to Canada. This is our solar-powered farm in Canada that creates this amazing, huge, amazing produce. It teaches them to be able to be at peace, not just with themselves, but the environment as well. And that is our way of making sure that the peace education actually manifests itself in a tangible way on the ground. Taking care of the biodiversity, like freshwater turtle conservation in Canada or sea turtle conservation in Oman and Suriname. All of these very grassroots actions have had long-term impact over the last 12 years since we've been working on the ground in trying to create a better world for all. We've planted over 1.2 million indigenous trees globally, from Barbados to Democratic Republic of the Congo, and over 100,000 mangroves from Indonesia to the Bahamas. And in every single one of these actions, we see the importance of peace education, because as we transition to a more sustainable future, we see that this peace education ensures a shift that's not just driven by data points, but actually understands that it's something that is very, very much on the ground, and it ensures long-term prosperity and helps to kind of, ignite hearts to build a world of sustainability and harmony, one where no one is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Your work is truly inspiring. Congratulations once again. Jacob, in some way you have already touched in your previous interventions these three pillars. You talked about planetary health, getting back together with Earth, about working in a community, so the social aspect of ESG, and the government, because you've also touched on sensitive but important political aspects of leadership, of transparency, of leading for the community. But since the main issue that brought us here is education, sort of a challenge to you, you're also a father. How do you view your role as a father and as a leader in terms of educating and training? How does an approach like the ESG one influence, in a good way, I would hope, your work as a leader and as a father?
Sorry. So a Wisdom Keepers delegation is about bringing together diverse groups of people who have traditional ecological knowledge. We all understand that indigenous people are safeguarding 80% of the world's lasting biodiversity. And there's a reason for that. I think that the connection...
Sorry, 80%?
80%, yeah, according to the IPCC report from a couple of years ago. And the indigenous people make up 5% of the world's population. And that 5% is protecting 80% of the world's lasting biodiversity. And so when we are looking at what does peace mean? You know, peace means a healthy, just, livable future. Human rights means healthy water, healthy air, healthy land, the ability to grow your own food. This is what peace means. My tribe is a Hopi tribe. The Hopi Tusilum means the peaceful people. Hopi itself means peace. And the way that we are able to ensure this is, well, first off, we're a matriarchal society and the women are in charge, so there goes that. The idea of us being able to really listen to our women and listen to the leadership of logic, especially when we get caught up with masculine toxicity. But the idea, once again, is when we talk about education, is that we must pass down the traditional knowledge that was given to us to our children. And as we engage with trying to expand on how traditional ecological knowledge can impact one region, we must focus globally. And so how do we incorporate all of the traditional ecological knowledge but implement it? And I think the way that we do this is by showing people in demonstrative sites and key different places where bioregeneration is taking place. And in order to do that, we must empower indigenous people. As a climate organizer who focuses on this from an organizer position, I've come into international spaces and seen large NGOs parading around indigenous people to tell their sad stories. They're pushing the wheel, and they're being puppeteered around by NGOs that do nothing but try to create these waves of their own energy speaking through these indigenous voices. And it's important for us as indigenous people to unify and say that we can speak for ourselves, and more importantly, to push our values and more importantly, the traditional ecological knowledge that we have globally into a contemporary climate policy. And we have to implement these ways. People are looking for solutions, but the solutions are already around us. We have the abilities, we have the capabilities, but what we need to do is educate people on how to step away from exploitive, extractive, masculine toxicity that is consuming the world and really redefine and amplify our own divine feminine and reconnecting with the land. And this includes how we grow our food. In our prophecies, we talk about a time where there's one path. When we first came to this earth, that we were given two choices. Masa, who is the guardian of the earth, wrote and told us that there is a path that is jagged, and it's a path of ease, and it's a path of technology. And this path abruptly ends. But the long path that goes towards tradition, to living off the land, understanding that we can eat what we provide, and that we must prepare for 7 years, this is something that we have to normalize. And there's a lot of teachings from indigenous people from around the globe that need to be incorporated. And the best way to do that is to go out and amplify those voices, especially in places of power, and especially when those voices need to be having an impact on the future of humanity globally. And this is the way that we move forward. We amplify things that are already taking place. Simple things. Instead of creating carbon markets that do nothing but allow rich countries to continue to pollute and destroy and trading one community's health for another, we must amplify the voices that are already contributing to bioregeneration globally around and find ways that we can listen to those voices and translate that into contemporary climate policy that will pull us out of the devastation that we're already facing. And so I think that relying into teachings, and more importantly, there is a moment in time that indigenous wisdom will come and has to be shared. A friend of mine is a Kogi who lives in the jungles of Colombia. They have a 500-year cycles. And last time the 500-year cycle started, the Spanish came to Mexico. And they took their people. They knew that this was the end of one cycle, and they went into the mountains and they hid. 500 years later, they came down from the mountains and said, this time is now. And we have teachings to share. And there are people who are coming from the mountaintops, who are coming from the kivas, who are coming from all these sacred places around the planet and saying that this is something that we need to share with the rest of the world to remind humanity that we are the same, and more importantly, that we have a collective future that everyone has a voice in and everyone is co-creating together all at the same time simultaneously. And so when we talk about education, we have to articulate what the future looks like. We have to educate by our conversations with our loved ones, with our families, with our colleagues, with our international passionate friends, and really define that and really broadcast this, because some things that we say just resonate with other people. And that itself is teaching us to go out, be better people, and become the beautiful flowers of humanity that we're meant to be.
So you have no doubt whatsoever in your mind that perhaps one of the most fundamental aspects of education today, not only for young people, for grown-ups, because in terms of consent education, is the fact that, correct me if I'm assuming wrong, our way of life and our way of consuming is simply not sustainable, period, end of discussion. We have to find new and radical ways out of this.
So I can speak from an American standpoint, right? The Americans' consumption of the rest of the world, it would take 5.1 Earths to feed the ongoing consumption and consumerism that takes place just in America. And so, this idea that we could solve the climate crisis by relying and giving money to corporations that created the climate crisis is ridiculous. We need to stop pollution at its source and not trying to find other ways to greenwash continuation of exploitive practices and destructive oppression systems that continue to exploit, extract indigenous people, and more importantly, the divine feminine of this earth. And that itself is just, we have to reteach these things. Some people aren't afforded that luxury of understanding from a young age to the old. And, we're all learning. We're always trying to grow and to evolve. And so I would encourage everyone to keep your hearts open, but more importantly, your ears open to comprehend what the words are being echoed throughout these small groups and gatherings, and really uplift the things that are working, what is happening. I speak from a global perspective from the collective that I work with. We are a small capacity. We have 18 people in COP. We have a small group. It's just me going through it, but we need to build capacity. And this is it. This is our chance. This is our moment. And it's passionate people from around the planet who have the same fire in your hearts. When you're feeling alone, remember back on this moment that you are not alone, that you never are, and that there is hope. There is always a way out. There's always a possibility.
Everyone knows about the Global Peace Index that we publish every year. Some people know about the Global Terrorism Index. Most people don't know about what, in my very personal opinion, is perhaps the most interesting report that IEP publishes every year, which is the Ecological Threats Report. It's not on climate change. It's on really environmental issues. It covers water security. It covers, of course, food security. It covers demographic metrics. It covers very, very different environmentally based threats to resilience and to social stability. I would definitely, of course, it's a free public good. You can download it for free online, and I definitely recommend it to everyone. Of course, it has some really technical parts, but the majority of the report is really readable, and it's sort of scary in sometimes. But okay, then when we intersect the findings from the ETR with the findings of the Global Peace Index and the Positive Peace Index, yes, definitely there is a correlation between the ecological hotspots and the least peaceful countries in the world. So clearly this is all connected. Jihan, You weren't in the intergenerational session, but I would like to bring a bit of that, of the feeling and of the lessons from that panel to you. From your work, how can you think that it can be improved? How can you think that the impact can be upgraded because again, one of the pillars of ESG is the social part of it. How do you feel that you, as a young woman, can and should push older people harder for the things that you believe in? How can intergenerational dialogue be a solution, be a bridge, and help you attain your goals? Then it's going to be the same question to you, Kekashan, okay?
Right. Thank you for the question. Well, personally, I do think that those type of conversation, intergenerational conversations, are important, especially for the young generation, because we still need our seniors to learn. For instance, about the climate change, we do need to learn from them as for us to have the learning, the tools, so we can impact for the next generation, because young people do represent the next generation. This is from my point of view. So if we do implement training sessions, programs that do help young women or young individuals to just implement their ideas, that would be like a first step to start with. Yeah, this is my opinion.
Thank you. Kekashan, please.
Sure. So I feel like a lot of the time as young people, we are seen, and sometimes we label it ourselves as well, that we are the future generations or the next generations, but we are the present as well. We are right here. We are creating change. And I feel like that emphasis on the work and the actions that we're taking needs to have a greater impact. And I feel like as someone who started her work when I was 7 and I founded Green Hope Foundation at 12, my age was definitely not something that people looked and were like, oh, how wonderful. It was definitely a barrier that they perceived it as. But when they saw the work that I was doing, they were like, okay, yeah, no, we're going to take her seriously because of that. And I feel like that is something that needs to change the mindset shift in terms of our other generations recognizing young people as those who don't just play the blame game, like people who are actually taking actions. So there needs to definitely be mindset shifts from both sides, because demonizing older generations is not going to work either. There are good and bad people in every generation. So I think that recognizing the good and the bad in every generation, learning from the mistakes and ensuring that we're able to kind of replicate and upscale successes is definitely something that can work. And definitely removing the age aspect of it, or not seeing that as the chief barrier, can for sure help with a lot of moving forward in terms of intergenerational solidarity. We see that through our work at Green Hope Foundation, working with so many people of all ages, of all genders, of all races, and we want to always make sure that the social determinants do not become a barrier, and for sure intergenerational solidarity in that aspect, with every single generation recognizing their strengths and weaknesses, helps to create that solidarity, which in turn leads to prosperity.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You are based in Dhaka.
No, I'm from Toronto, Canada.
You're from Toronto, Canada, because I saw many pictures from Bangladesh. That's why I was asking. But being in Canada, it's interesting because I then wanted to pose the same question to Jacob, and it's going to be interesting to see the difference. To what extent do you feel that the stakeholder community with whom you engage is aware, or has engaged, or has embraced a systemic approach such as the ESG one? Is it getting any traction? Do you feel that?
Well, a lot of the communities that we work in some of the countries that I shared were not just Bangladesh, but Kiribati, India, Liberia, Cambodia. We work in 28 countries, so a lot of different countries around the world. A lot of the communities that are very much at the grassroots and are most often left behind are not using ESG as their framework because they do not know, and frankly doesn't relate directly, at least they don't think it relates directly to them, the E and the S and the G. But the everyday actions that lead to sustainability are definitely something that relates to these frameworks. In my experience, the frameworks are something that we use to be able to kind of move forward and implement the actions, but it's the impact on the ground that really makes sure that we're making the principles of things like ESG a reality. Now, when you think about it, when we work with businesses and other stakeholders, then there's a really long way to go in that aspect, and education is definitely needed. I just completed my MBA at Cornell University, and I was one of the very, very few people who was focused more on the social and environmental side rather than the just making money side. So I feel like that definitely needs to change. But on the ground, no, it's the impact that counts, and impact that contributes to making the principles of ESG a reality.
Thank you so much to the panel. Thank you both. And please, let's wrap this one up. And thank you so much.
Thank you.